I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and here today with me is Bill Murphy, chairman of the Gold Antitrust Action Committee. He writes daily on Le Metropole Cafe, his website. Thanks so much for joining me.
Charlotte, thanks for thinking of me. Good to see you again.
Yes, good to see you. We actually last spoke a year ago at this conference, the New Orleans Investment Conference. You were able to give me a good overview of gold market manipulation and what GATA is doing to combat that. Have there been any developments since then that you think investors should know about?
Well, the biggest development is the obvious action in the markets. I mean, this year has been exceptionally excruciating because of the way what I call the gold cartel, which is the bullion banks, it's Fed, the Treasury, Exchange Stabilization Fund, Bank for International Settlements. It's been so obvious the way they've attacked these markets. And, we've gone out of our way to get as much coverage on this as possible. And, we're working behind the scenes to get to some politicians to see if something can be done.
Yeah, I watched Chris Powell's talk yesterday morning, and he mentioned Congressman Alex Mooney and his work reaching out to the Fed and the U.S. Treasury about gold. Do you expect to see more traction with that involvement?
Well, I hope so, but I got to be honest. I mean, this is the 20-year anniversary of GATA, and I've been to Washington a number of times in the Joint Economic Committee, the Subcommittee on Domestic and International Monetary Policy. Spoke with Ron Paul, and they listen very intently, but they don't do anything.
So you need somebody who's actually going to do something.
We need somebody who's willing to stick his neck out, because what GATA is doing is taking on all the money and power in the world. We knew that, in the beginning, and we learned what that would be like as the years have gone by, and people just don't want to confront them.
Last year, you told me a little bit about the extent of market manipulation. You explained that the stock and bond markets are also rigged. Can you share more about that? There's a lot of people here calling for a stock market crash. How does this all relate?
Well, it's a very good question. And a lot of people know it's admitted that the bond market is rigged. And when it comes to the stock market, there's something called the plunge protection team that is there behind the scenes in case the market's getting out of control on the downside, to step up to the plate. And it's just some people are willing to deal with it and some aren't. And we think lately the way the stock market is traded, and especially in the last half hour, 45 minutes, you can see this plunge protection team coming in to calm things down. And then you have the working group on financial markets when it comes to gold and currency markets, which is people don't even know about it, but it's part of the government law that they can go in and intervene in the gold and currency markets, and it's totally legal.
For those who are following your work, and for you, it must be frustrating to see the gold price failing to gain the traction that it should. Do investors just need to be patient? What do you think?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, this past year and years have been so frustrating because other assets have soared. The stock market, the cryptocurrencies, art, real estate, and gold and silver have just been in the weeds. And, of course, from our standpoint, the way we see it, it's all because of the gold cartel. I mean, if you go back and said, here, the government's going to use all this quantitative easing, they're going to have budget deficits, debt's going to go like crazy, interest rates are going to go to zero, and gold and silver would go back to where they are now. I mean, silver especially, it's just an outrage what J.P. Morgan and this gold cartel has done to keep silver, around 14. And even lately, I mean, it's the silliest thing I've ever seen. Every time silver goes to 1470, they're there to knock it down. It goes on over and over again. And even though you had gold had a big 3% rally out of nowhere a couple of weeks ago, they haven't let silver do a thing. And I think it's because they're petrified of losing control of silver, because if they lose control of silver on the upside, they're going to lose control of gold.
Can you share your strategy for investing and what investors should be doing under these circumstances? Are you buying gold? What are you doing?
Well, I think to me, it's such a tough one because it all depends on people's risk parameters.
Sure.
And, safest thing to do is be buying gold and silver and make sure you've got safe possession of it someplace and so on for protection. But I don't think I've ever seen the shares cheaper relative to gold and silver and to other assets. And I think because of what's happened and we've had what I call a 7-year itch, where it's been really terrible. You've had some rallies, but they've all faded. And I think that they're so undervalued, and that when this thing turns, historic returns will be made in the gold and silver shares.
Any final words that you would leave investors with for this topic?
Yeah, don't give up.
Okay. Yeah.
Means this has been terrible, and even for me. And I write a commentary every day, and I go out and then I try to keep people in the game. And it's been enervating at times. I mean, it's no fun writing about what the gold cartel is doing to keep the prices in the dumpster. And it's a lot of people have left, and they've given up. It's just human nature. And it's created a big picture sentiment that's going to lead to one of the big moves of all time. And I've been thinking, I've been correct, that silver's going to 100. And I think once it breaks 21, which is a real key to May 15, of course, first, but breaks that level, it's going to go up very, very fast, and almost like the cryptos went up a couple of years ago now.
Okay, so really important to think long term and remember the potential that's there.
Yes, but long term can become short term very quickly. That's going to be my point, is that when it goes this time, I don't think we're going to have the gradual moves like we saw at the early part of the decade. It's going to be explosive.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We'll leave it there for now. Once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and this is Bill Murphy.